Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It's a circuit that has everything and then some. One of the few figure eights in the world. One of the most legendary tracks for Formula Racing. 13 times the World Championship has been decided in this country. And on 12 of those occasions, it has been decided at this track. This is the circuit just 1.5 kilometers away from Issei Bay. Welcome to Suzuka and round 4 of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, just a stone's throw away from Nagoya in Japan. My name's Jake Sperry. Alongside me for the ride today is Caitlin Penny, Jay Kennedy on the cameras, bringing you all of the action. But this is a circuit today which has been the footnote to so many championships. Today, this is about how you rubber stamp it in. We zoom in to find where we are. We're halfway between Tokyo and Osaka. And as we zoom into where Suzuka is, over with Issei Bay, and there is a look as we zoom right on down at this incredible figure eight circuit, Caitlin.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Jake. Indeed, if you ask any Formula One driver or professional racing driver who has raced here, I'm sure that they'll tell you that this is one of their favorite race circuits. It's a true driver's track, and I've heard it listed many times amongst at least the top 5 Grand Prix circuits in the world. It's actually the first Formula One circuit that we're including on the calendar this season, alongside the real-life Grand Prix fraternity, I suppose. And as a result, a lot more drivers have turned up for this one, drawn in by the allure and the prestige of a Grand Prix weekend. And today, I'm sure that we're going to have just as much excitement as Suzuka has ever seen in the real world.
5 splits here today. We are with Top Split and the most incredible action over these 5.8 kilometers, these 18 turns, and the 53 laps worth of racing that we are going to have here today. This is a circuit that is steeped in history. Just the other side of Nagoya is the city of Toyota, where, of course, the Toyota Motor Company was founded, and such an incredible amount of work has gone into this Suzuka circuit to make it so incredible. Let's talk championship standings, though. The iRacing standings are in the hands of Jordan Gronkowski at the moment. 821 points to his name, with Darren Parker and Eduardo Radiz giving the biggest chase. Jorge Martinez in the mix. Jacob Reed jumping up into 7th, with Volta Lux and Anthony Cat 5th and 6th. Reynaldo Augusto has been putting in his effort in the different slots. He's in 8th place, with Edward Apari, RE, and Connor Pooler rounding out the top 10. We look over, though, to the SimSpeed Championship, where it is all about who wins the races here with us at SimSpeed TV. And Jordan Gronkowski's back-to-back performances now put him in front of Darren Parker on 44 points, with Jorge Martinez 3rd and Jacob Reed up into 4th position. You then have Timothy Vaughan in 5th, with Volta Lux 6th, and then it's Eduardo Radiz, who struggled a little bit last time out, Adam Gleeson, Connor Pula, and Leopold Steneros makes up the top 10 of the championships overall. But Caitlin, 53 laps, 2 tyre compounds that must be used, and DRS available after or on the start of lap 3. This is the sort of circuit where you can make those moves, and it's that DRS zone up to 130R.
Yeah, absolutely. Drivers here tend to run their cars with quite a lot of wings, quite a lot of rear wing, because it is quite a twisty one. You see these S's in the first sector, some of the most difficult corners that you'll encounter over the Grand Prix World Tour. And that, of course, means that when you open that DRS flap, you lose even more drag than you would otherwise do so at other circuits. So DRS overtakes are absolutely possible here today. The difficulty, of course, is keeping up with your opponents through the tighter sections, and that is where the drivers are going to be hanging on for dear life, like they're riding a bucking bronco. You see the projected tyre life there as well. Not really that long, although longer than we've had at some other circuits. I'm imagining that medium and hard tyres will probably be the order of the day for the most part. But we've seen some drivers doing some incredible things on soft tyres so far this season, and you really can't count out drivers going much longer.
Doesn't seem to be too much difference between soft and mediums today, so keep an eye on that as we get things closer to our performances. Let's take a look at the starting grid. It's Eduardo Radice who is on the pole. He will have Jacob Reed alongside him for company. The second row houses the championship leader, Jordan Gronkowski, and Anthony Catt with a great qualifying. He's back to form. He starts from 4th. Adam Gleeson goes from 5th with Connor Pula in 6th position. Darren Parker's got a bit of work to do. He goes from 7th with Volta Lux in 8th place. 9th position then will belong to Jorge Martinez with Edward Apare Arie, the last car inside the top 10. Cedric Beale and Adam Webb, they will house themselves on row 6 with 13th position belonging to Cesare Manzato. Jason Green was the only driver last season to have all starts in the SimSpeed Championship. He goes from 14th. Paul O'Regan has George Van Rensburg in 16th for company, with Florian Kammeyer 17th and Brad Newman, the last driver to set a representative time, in 18th place. The 4 who didn't might surprise you. Timothy Vaughan couldn't get a qualifying lap time in, neither could Kent Nielsen. Work to do for Ray Lombardi. He starts 21st, and Oyvind Haugland will be the last driver there in 22nd position. Now, one thing to keep in mind here today is the tyre compounds, because they are on C2, C3, and C4 in the racing that we'll have 2 days from now. It will be C1, C2, and C3. So these drivers have a little bit more of an aggressive run with tyres, so keep an eye out on that. That run to turn 1 is so crucial. And, of course, it's advantage those on the left-hand side of the circuit. They've got the pole, so Radice might have the best opportunity out of everyone. Everyone on mediums except one. That's going to be Anthony Catt, who is on the hard tyre. Everyone else has chosen medium, but as the lights then start to illuminate, the green flag drops, and we are underway here from Suzuka. A decent start all round by most drivers there. Maybe Connor Pula did okay, but in towards the opening corner, Radice is unchallenged. Gronkowski trying to go around the outside. One off the road there in the background is going to stay out of trouble. That's going to be Darren Parker, but as they rush through, there's a little bit of biffo as they rush through now. The Ashura S-curve for the first time, heading towards Gyakabang. It's Parker who's falling backwards.
Little bit of contact. Everyone needs to be careful. These cars, oh dear, and around. Was that Cedric Bull? He's off the road.
That's George.
And it's George Van Rensburg. So Van Rensburg, the first car in the gravel. I was saying these cars are very sensitive to damage, so you really can't afford to be doing stuff like this on the first lap, or else it's a long race for you.
It really is, and George Van Rensburg, the wrong side of Lady Luck, and that was always going to be troublesome as they go through. Parker, I think, is done. He must have had damage on his car because he is pulled back to the pits, and that is a hammer blow in the early stages of the season for him. That will surely be no points in the offing here today. Radice, your leader, Reed in second, Gronk finds himself in third, and Anthony Catt, the only hard tyre runner, he's on the alternative strategy here today, Caitlin, in 4th place.
Yeah, it's bizarre to only see one driver taking an alternative strategy, but that shows that mediums are absolutely the order of the day. As I said, they might be. But yeah, what a shame for Darren Parker. I've been really impressed by him in qualifying this season. Only the 16th seeded driver, and he tends to... Oh, and off the road, it's Eduardo Radice. So Radice, one of the top drivers in the split, who qualified right at the front, has lost it from the lead.
From the race lead, completely unforced from the Italian, and the final corner is so underratedly difficult. This is why it goes wrong, and you get a true sense of it. Just sliding through the corner. Thank you very much. He just caught the inside of the curb, and that was pretty much all that's needed. That transfer of speed, and the backs just said, no, I do not want to turn. Jacob Reed, now your new leader, the reigning champion. Jordan Gronkowski second, Anthony Cat now in third.
Still a little bit of a bizarre one. Usually you see understeering cars off there. Think about Timo Glock when he damaged his spine in 2009. Think about Juan Pablo Montoya in the race that Formula One has recently uploaded the extended highlights of to their YouTube channel, 2005. I've seen cars go in head first there, but seeing them swap ends like that is unusual and speaks to quite an edgy car. But unfortunately for Radice, he is now down into 19th position. Just seen a move. Olivio Hoygland has got himself, or Olivind Hoygland, sorry, has just got himself past Brad Newman. And now we're on board with Gleason, looking at the back of the hard-shod Anthony Cat, who he will potentially pass soon.
Yeah, but couldn't manage it there. That was so committed by Anthony Cat on the brakes. So much confidence in him, and I think he's really put a lot of time in to get the practice. Fastest lap bonus point in the hands of Jacob Reed, but watch out for the DRS. Here comes the move down the inside. Easy as you like. Adam Gleason now up into third position with that pass here on lap 3 of this race. Brilliantly done, and we are going to now start seeing those overtakes with that rear wing flap in play. Here's Paul O'Regan now having to play a very, very heavy defense, because that's Brad Newman that he's just passed behind him, and then the recovering Timothy Vaughan in yellow, as he traditionally is, now looking to try and jump up. Can the Kiwi find 2 places to get up to P15?
Now, you got to remember that Vaughan here was one of the drivers who did not set a qualifying time, so he was out of position at the start. And the highest seeded driver who was out of position in 9th, the number 9 on the side of his car there. Quite a distinctive car, that bright yellow, so we'll be able to keep an eye on his progress, simply because you won't be able to miss him. And this is Connor Paula and Anthony Cat. Cat gets driven out of road.
Paula's wide.
And Paula runs wide now, so Cat might come back through.
He definitely might here as they will charge up the hill. They were scrapping it out through Spoon, but Cat falls back into line. Volta Lux pretty much leaves just enough room between them. And now, where's the angle going to be on the brakes? Into the Hitachi Astemo chicane, and he's got that one pretty much covered there, does Anthony Cat. But he is going to have to pay the price early. With drivers on the mediums, he's on the hard, and he's going to struggle out there. But he now has the DRS to effectively defend so long as he stays within a second. O'Connor Pooler just in front, no move into the first and second curves.
Plenty of action in the early stages here at Suzuka. Cars moving around all over the place. And we've got more action in the background there. 2 cars side by side. Haugland and Manzatu this time. So Haugland's been on the move in the early stages, now up into 13th position as it stands. But yeah, plenty of moves. Some of that triggered by Anthony Cat being on the alternative rubber. And of course, some of that just being with the cars all mashed together at the start of the race and all hungry for positions.
2.3 seconds, the gap at the front for Jacob Reed over Jordan Gronkowski in second. The championship leader, Adam Gleason, finds himself in third, but this is the battle right now. The cork in the bottle. Jarno Trulli would be proud. Anthony Cat, Volta Lux, Jorge Martinez, who couldn't string his second lap together. He's up 2 spots at the moment and looking to try and improve a little bit more out there. But as they crest the rise, heading to 130R once again, Edward Apari also in this train. Where's the look coming from Lux? The answer to that is on the brakes here, down the inside, round the outside, brilliant on defense. Here comes Martinez.
Marquez going through as well. I'm afraid my stream is quite slightly frozen right now, so I can't see exactly what's happening. But he should have a good run down the straight. Oh, here he comes. And, sorry, I think you're going to have to take over for a bit.
Yeah, Apariari here is also going to steal one there. Marquez had thoughts on trying to make the move there on Anthony Cat. So that was always going to be a big opportunity out there. It very much was a case of, if you're not going to attack, who will? Edward Apariari did, Jorge Marquez did, and that means Anthony Cat is going to be that one driver who's going to start jumping up through the, or falling back through the order still, as he looks around at everybody else trying to just get by. The train increases.
Indeed, sorry, down through the Degners. This is where you go under the circuit. We mentioned how it's a figure of 8, and you saw the track going over the top. That's just on the run down to 130R there. None of this is important whatsoever, of course, but it does mean that the tyre wear should be relatively equal on each side of the car compared to some other circuits. You don't have one tyre that takes the brunt of the force, and in fact the majority of it tends to be on the rear tyres, judging by how slow the track is and how you have to accelerate out of turns like the Degners and out of the hairpin and corners like that. So that will be something to watch as the race goes on, but for the time being, Marquez is still getting closer and closer to Anthony Cat.
He is. He definitely wants to get through, and Apariari, he knows it. He's got their Lux 2 behind. Cedric Beale in the group, Jason Green, Adam Webb, Kent Nielsen, Oyvind Haugland, all there. It goes back to 13th place as Marquez just scythes his way through, and there is no argument there. You could not write that any better. Also, the move happens then for Paulo Reagan and co. Eduardo Radice on the recovery now is up into 14th place, and here's someone chomping at the bit, trying to get through.
Yes, indeed. Well, Marquez has got through past Cat, so next of all, it's going to be the battle between Apariari and Lux who catch up to Anthony Cat. It's slightly strange to see someone so far up the order go onto the alternate strategy, because normally it's someone who doesn't really have much to lose anyway, who tries something slightly different. Because of course for Cat, he's now going to have to pass extra cars later on in the race once he makes his stop. And normally, of course, if you have a driver who starts from the back and goes onto hard tyres, it's because they were going to have to pass drivers anyway, so it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, so this is going to be important. Let's get a listen in on what makes these engines tick. We're going to tune in and hear just how important this sound is. Anthony Cat runs off the road then at turns 1 and 2. He'll fall back behind Lux, behind Apariari, behind Marquez, and that puts him back in 8th place. A disaster for him as he looks to continue here on lap 7. There is Edward Apariari, who sees behind him the Austrian Volta Lux through the 2 Degner corners here, the 2 juts on this circuit, which are so juxtaposed to what is a beautifully flowing first sector.
Absolutely. I've seen Eric Borsma in the YouTube chat as well saying Gronk on the mediums at the start of the race is a spot on your season-long bingo card. But to be honest, in this race, everyone started the race on the medium tyres, so it's not entirely that surprising. We were looking at the battle between Gleeson and Paula over that 3rd position, and this is an important one as well because, here we go. Well, Paula took a look to the inside of 130R there, not normally an overtaking opportunity. He might have a go into the triangle, but backs out of it. But yeah, the more they do this, the more Reed and Gronkowski, the usual suspects, can get away at the front.
And those usual suspects are clear. That look at the Hitachi Astemo chicane was not quite there for Conor Paula. He'll have a think at turn 1. He left it as late as can be, but powering around the outside. Adam Gleeson with confidence in the downforce. able to stave it off. Jason Green now looking for a move. This to jump into 8th place if he can. Past Anthony Catt, who remember is on that alternative strategy, trying to get as much as possible. And remember Eduardo Radice, he's picked up the fastest lap bonus point, but he can't cash the point in, Caitlin, until he's top 10.
Yep, so he's got to gain 3 more positions, and remember his tyres might have copped some damage when he went for that spin earlier on. So hopefully that's the only thing that's damaged, maybe his pride as well. But anyway, still putting in those lap times, still getting quicker, and if he can get into the top 10. And here comes Connor Paula, taking a look to the inside now on Adam Gleeson.
Wow.
Needs to break in later. Wide they run, but I think that was a fair move there, and he gets through to 3rd.
And he's been so good, has Connor Paula, through 200 right. He's been brilliant out of the Nissan hairpin there, and that's been his big plus. The Nissan brake hairpin has been his big plus, and ultimately Connor Paula's now got that 3rd place locked up. But he does run slightly wide there through the Hitachi Astemo chicane, and that will open up Gleeson. Another look at it here. Look, that's just commitment to the inside, Caitlin. He just commanded the corner.
Absolutely. Paula was always likely to get through there, and he played that exactly right. And sure, Gleeson ran out of road, but it's not like Paula really forced him off. Meanwhile, we look further
this
back.
might be 3 wide, heading towards turn 1. That was close. Round the outside goes Radice, makes the pass on Beal, Nielsen, and Haugland as well. And Haugland now might lose out because Paul O'Regan's in the mix. He has to lift out, then through the S, and that's going to lead up towards Gjukabank. Here, the chance for Timothy Vaughan, who can't find it. Excellent stuff, and all of a sudden, Radice is up to 11th.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, my apologies. Of course, that wasn't Marquinez. I was watching the wrong screen. But we've got Eduardo Radice fighting Beal, Nielsen, Haugland, O'Regan, and Vaughan. And yes, that's not a glitch or anything like that. Those cars are all separated by pretty much less than half a second from each other, with the exception of maybe O'Regan, who lost out quite badly from all of that. I'm expecting Vaughan to come through relatively quickly in this one as well. And I tell you what, at the pace that he is going at the start here, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the top 10 by the time we get to the stops.
Jordan Gronkowski has found a rhythm, and Jacob Reed will know it. The last 2 laps, he has dropped 0.3 of a second, and this might be huge in terms of another one. Reed over the line. How much time does he hemorrhage here? The answer is nearly half a second. Jordan Gronkowski has got those tyres humming here on lap 10, and Jacob Reed is maybe being a little bit more aggressive by comparison. In comes Cedric Beal, 10 laps on the mediums. That is way shorter than we thought.
Much, much shorter. I mean, we were looking at the predicted life earlier, and it said 16 laps for the mediums. And even then, we have to take it with a grain of salt, because drivers have been trying to run their tyres for as long as they physically can so far this season. But yes, 10 laps, that shows an alternative strategy is potentially in the works, and it'll be interesting to see what he goes on to as to
another
what
set of mediums.
Do.
So he's gone on to another set of the medium tyres, which indicates to me that that's not where he wanted to be. It was maybe a bit too aggressive, so he's going to try something alternate here, where he goes long maybe on this second stint and looks to try and switch about lap 26 or so, I would say, onto a set of the hard tyres to get to the end. That would be my thinking here with Beal's strategy if he wants to push forward in this race and get what he wants from it. That gap ever closing, though, at the front. Jacob Reed meeting a match here today with Jordan Gronkowski. That gap hovering at 1.1. It is agonizingly close at the moment, but Gronk knows what it takes to win. He's won the last 2. He's looking for his three-peat here on lap 11.
Indeed, and the important thing about this as well is that from what we've seen so far in this championship, as we see a swap in positions just outside of the top 10, but oh, here we go, side by side, O'Regan and Haugland. Looks like O'Regan will get that for the time being as we head onto the straight, and Timothy Vaughan pits now as well, so it's not just Beal going for that quite early first stop. But what I was going to say is that with Reed versus Gronkowski, we've seen that Gronkowski tends to be stronger in the latter part of the race. from precedent this season. So if that's the same thing again today, and if the track and the car just comes to him as it goes along, then Gronkowski could be hard to keep back today.
Aggressive strategy by Timothy Vaughan. He goes on to the Redwall soft compound tyres, the C2s, looking to try and get out and gain as much as possible out of his run. Now, these soft tyres here in the real world, they're going to effectively be the medium compound tyres that they will be running out there, because they're on C1, C2, and C3. Of course, it'll be C2, C3, and C4 that we've got here in iRacing. So that's going to be the focus. Adam Gleeson behind right now has fallen desperately into the clutches of this next group, and that group contains Jorge Marquez, Edward Apari-Ariyi, and Volta Lux.
It does indeed. That's a bit of a hornet's nest that you wouldn't want to see in your mirrors. But anyway, Adam Gleeson, we know, can defend. Pretty impressive to see him running ahead of the likes of Marquez, for example, who has been one of the fastest drivers so far this season. He did get a little twitchy through that corner there, right on the edge. Marquez will have the DRS now. How close can he get? He's going to get alongside him into turn 1, up the inside, and Marquez gets 4th position.
Yeah, so he flies through. Nothing that Adam Gleeson can do about that. The overspeed, just too much. Here in Mie Prefecture, Japan, here, Suzuka is the 4th round of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. We're on lap 12 of 53. On board we go with Eduardo Radice, who was your pole sitter, took the race lead and spun at the end of the opening lap through the final corner, and he has been on a recovery since. This is to move inside the top 10 if he can get past the green machine of Jason Green.
Indeed, don't count Radice out for a good result just yet. Of course, he'll have to wait a little while because the next few corners are quite tight. They come in quite quick succession, unless, of course, he gets a really good run down this next section and gets the inside line up into Spoon, like we saw from Konopula. Then he might have to wait for the entry to 130R and the triangle, which I'm told is no longer called the Casio triangle. And that will be his next opportunity. So let's see what he does now. You'll see, well, you would have seen it if he'd opened the DRS and got closer. But talking of closer, Gronkowski is very nearly within DRS range of Jacob Reed now.
I'd like a look at the rear wings of your top 2, because this shows a story of different strategies out here today. You can see the flat bevel of the rear wing there, that bottom flap. That indicates to me it's a lower downforce package here from Jordan Gronkowski. Take a look at Jacob Reed, though. Your race leader overall. A lot more wing, a lot more bevel on that wing, and that indicates a higher downforce package, and you're seeing it here in devilish detail right now, Caitlin, because it's 0.3 of a second in the opening sector for Jacob Reed. When it's brought back by Jordan Gronkowski, it's in the stop-start, it's in the straights, it's where he can use the power.
Yeah, look at that. Very visible there. Much, much more wing and a completely different package being run by Jacob Reed. And I saw in the chat as well, Jay Dempster saying that Cat is a sitting duck on the straights because the cars around him have MDF. I presume that means mid downforce. Whereas, of course, Cat is likely also running the high downforce. So in terms of the cars, sure, the chassis may be exactly the same, but you can run different setups and potentially different downforce packages entirely, depending on what suits you and depending on what suits the circuits.
Yeah, the needs must at this point here, and we haven't really talked weather here today. It's mostly cloudy conditions here, westerly wind coming in. There's blustering about somewhere between 9 and 13 Ks is what we're seeing here. So I would say a good day here at Suzuka. Not much of that sea breeze coming into play. Ray Lombardi down into the pits then. So he's looking to get onto a new strategy. He'll fall a lap down as he moves on to the hard tyres. Look at the train, though, just outside your top 10. Nielsen and Green and Webb, and Radice is running the gauntlet here. He's now up to 9. He might just take 8 here as he flies past Anthony Cat, and gets through. Absolutely brilliant. Cat trying to fight back on the exit. Can he charge up through the S's? No, he can't. He can't get there at the Ashira S-curve.
Even our cameraman Jay squawked at that one, and I don't blame you at all, Jay, because that was a real heart-in-mouth moment. Looks like, oh, well, we briefly saw the Cat. Yes, well, we briefly saw that Cat had lost places, but he's back up into... Okay, I think there may have been some kind of transponder issue or something along those lines, but anyway, as we look now at Upari Ari, and there is Anthony Cat, so he's still running. I was a bit worried for a second because he was dropping down the order, but good to see he's still there at least.
He is still there, and that would have been a cause of concern, but there is Edward Apari, RE, car number 21, Club UK and Ireland, and he looks behind him. Volta Lux has got ahead of steam, but you've got to look out for the race lead, because all of a sudden that gap is 0.4 of a second at the front. It will extend out to 0.7 with the dirty air effect or the vortices that hit the wing. But Jordan Gronkowski, for the first time, has got DRS. And for Jacob Reed, that is a sentence he did not want to hear.
Indeed, Gronk looking strong in these early stages with the DRS. He has that rear wing flap open on the straights. And of course, we were talking about the downforce packages just now. And the important thing about that, the thing that it actually affects, is that Reed should potentially be slightly faster in the corners, meaning Gronkowski has his work cut out to keep up with Jacob Reed. But of course, Gronkowski, if he can get close enough, should be fairly unstoppable on the straights. He's got less drag, the car will be sticking to the ground a bit less, and as a result, he should theoretically have a higher top speed, especially with the DRS and the slipstream that he'll use to try to overtake.
It's Worcester versus Scotland here at the front of your iRacing Grand Prix Tour field, as it is Reed versus Gronkowski. As things stand, that is Adam Webb, who might be in a little bit of bother as he comes out of the second Degner, runs in through the Nissan brake hairpin, and just like that, he'll drop another one. He was running up in 10th place at the start of the lap, and his issue is the same one many drivers have at Degner too, getting caught on the AstroTurf.
Oh, and he clunks the wall with both the front and rear. Sometimes you can get away with that if you do that with quite a square side-on hit, but you see he hit with the rear and then the front, so I would be surprised if that hasn't misaligned the axles at least a fraction. There you see the leaders once again separated by less than half a second as they crossed the start-finish line. This is going to be a fight, and I can really see how this one's going to go, with Reed pulling away in the corners, being difficult to keep up with Gleeson. Let's take a look at Gleeson. Oh, he's off the road. So I saw Gleeson dropping through the order, and that's because he's had an off. So that puts Upari Ari up into 5th place now, and Gleeson down to 8th.
Oh, there might have been a bit of contact there between them, and that could have been troublesome for Adam Gleeson as he falls back. We'll see it on the sim speed replay here. Driving up through towards the opening corner, tags the right rear, and round he goes. And all the while, it's about how do you get back into position, and that was where the struggle streak came into play. Rushing through, Gleeson will now lose the place. That's Anthony Cat, who is still a factor in this race because he's on the hard tyre compared to everyone else. Gleeson all of a sudden realises that he's back in 9th place, which is not where he was hoping to be after that one moment.
No, here's a replay from onboard.
You
see the... Yeah. So I have to say that's not the fault of either of them there. That is just the sort of thing that happens when you are sim racing, potentially in different countries. I'm not entirely sure where they are based. But unfortunately that... Oh, and look at Gronkowski.
Oh, here comes Gronk!
And up the inside and into the lead.
Look at that. That's brilliantly done. But this is where Jacob Reed is good, and he can attack back. Here's they head towards the Asura S-curve. This is where Jordan Gronkowski now has to be so alert as they head now over the top of the ridge here at Gyakubank corner. Gleeson in, Green in, both making their stop. But Gronkowski leads here at Suzuka.
But there's nowhere through for Reed. He simply cannot get past a car in the middle of a corner like that. I think he's got to pit this lap. He's got to pit and then try to undercut him, as you see plenty of other drivers who were in battles doing, as Gleeson, Green and Van Rensburg are indeed all in the pits. I would be shocked if Jacob Reed does not come in this time around. And Jordan Gronkowski has to stay out, at least for a little bit, and extend his lead while he has the clean air.
It makes so much sense right now for Jacob Reed. He knows how quick Jordan Gronkowski is when he's got clean air and determination. But remember, he's got the DRS here, so he can counter back. Maybe he doesn't have as much straight line speed, but he's definitely got that opportunity here to really focus. But he'll be down in a straight line. He can only make 280 as he heads through 130R. And Gronkowski pulls out to almost a 1 second gap through this section. Reed dives in, has to, no other choice.
It was the most logical time to pit, and we're right on that buffer as well. If you look at the laps, you see that we're 18 laps in, and that's about how long we were expecting the medium-tired runners to go. So makes a lot of sense there. You see Paula now up into second, Martinez up into third. And the real question now will be where Reed comes on side by side. We've got Apari Ari and Lux. Walter Lux still there on the inside and maintains the position. And you're right, Reed has gone onto soft, so he aims to push and jump Gronkowski back again.
This might be a 3-stop strategy here today from Jacob Reed. This might be uber aggressive, what we're going to see. And now as he climbs up through, he's going to have to go around the outside of the Gyaku bank on Paul O'Regan. A worldie of a move.
And a very important one. Now he won't be held up by him through the Degners, through the hairpin, through Spoon. And that, of course, means that he has that clean air, or at least until he catches Kent Nielsen, who is the next car ahead of him. And then, of course, he's got to do it all over again as quickly as he possibly can. Here's Jordan Gronkowski. Now, he's in an awkward position here because he may have been able to benefit from the clean air. And on paper, he will. But of course, if Reed is quicker on that soft tyre, then that could, of course, mean that Reed has the advantage and might end up jumping back ahead of him again. So does Gronkowski react? Not this time around. He still values that clean air while Reed is fighting his way through.
I wonder if he's going for a 2-stop today. That might be the question here. It's 2 versus 3. Gleeson and Green, 17th and 18th, both stopped on the same lap, both racing for position, both want to try and get what they can out of it. They've dropped 11 seconds here to as they was very, very close through there. That was almost Adam Gleeson off. That will allow Jason Green through. Edward Apariari is in, so too is Paul O'Regan. So both of them will now make their stop through at 130R. Down the inside goes Jason Green.
Always a brave place to make the move. He had it done pretty much before the corner, but you still got to have quite a few guts to keep your car stuck in on the inside. Now this is the situation. Watch this. He's going to do it again, is he? Reed around the outside.
2 for 2!
Just like he did a lap ago. Fantastic stuff from Jacob Reed. And again, another very important one on Kent Nielsen that he's now not going to be held up by.
Kent Nielsen is the toughest driver in the field to make an overtake on, and he's gone around the outside of the Gyaku bank again. George Van Rensburg with the fastest lap, and he's almost tapping through the corner, the hard-tired runner, Anthony Catt. So you're really getting a sense here of how much pace Jacob Reed has, and the one thing he is being hemorrhaged by is right now the traffic that he's got to get through and the places he must make. Scythes his way through at Spoon Curve. Anthony Catt, who's got nothing on those hard tyres.
Him go though. This is some of the best overtaking we've seen so far this season, and Reed now has a bit of clean air. He's got about 5 seconds ahead of him to Eduardo Radice, who of course is pushing on in his own right. And the real question now will be what Gronkowski does now that Reed has clean air. I'm not sure if he'll know realistically what Reed is doing. That depends, I suppose, if he has a spotter, if he's keeping an eye on the times, and Radice comes into the pits as well.
So he got held up at the Nissan brake corner, and even with that, it's a 32-4 from Jacob Reed. That is a massive canary in the coal mine moment for Jordan Gronkowski. He has got to make that call. Radice will come out of the pits in about 12th, 13th place, but surely Gronk now realises, with 34 laps to go, that he is in an absolute slogfest here with Jacob Reed.
I think it's too late for Gronkowski now. I think if he pits, he's going to drop behind Reed. So what I would potentially consider doing is going for a 2-stop strategy for Jordan Gronkowski, knowing that Reed is potentially confining himself to a 3-stopper. Now, I've seen in the chat Eric Boersma saying 17 laps on the soft tyres would be 2 really strong stints, but it is doable. And yes, it absolutely is, especially as the tyres, or as the cars get lighter, the tyre wear will also become less of a factor. So it's still not out of the question that Reed could do a 2-stop strategy, in which case Gronkowski's just got to think about setting himself up for the end of the race, where he will probably have to make another overtake on Jacob Reed. But for the time being, Reed has played this very well indeed, I'd say.
Well, we'll see what sort of time he can do, because he is absolutely marauding here around Mie Prefecture as he crosses the line. That's a 1:30.7. He absolutely owns the fastest lap with that, and he is making a massive statement. 2.5 seconds on that last lap is lopped straight out of your race leader, Jordan Gronkowski, who is now committed to the 2-stoppers behind. Edward Apariari makes the move on Cesare Manzato. We look there at Ken Nielsen. He's now through on Anthony Catt, who may be committed to a 1-stop today.
Potentially, yeah. At this point in the race, I'm pretty sure that the majority of drivers are looking at 2-stop strategies. Question marks over some of those who pitted quite early on, the likes of Timothy Vaughan, for example, who is running in 8th position as it stands. Anthony Catt, of course, started on those hards, is running long, and yes, I can absolutely see him doing a 1-stop as well. Talking of Catt, we are looking... Sorry, go on.
Adam Gleeson is out here at Suzuka, so we have got a second retiree here in this race, and it happened so nonchalantly. I think Gleeson just parked the car after he ran off wide and said, you know what, that'll do that. So this is coming through Spoon. It's a really weird incident to kind of have happen here in a race like this, where it is so important. You can see comes out there of the corner on the exit, and he just parks it.
Yeah, possibly feeling some damage from the incident early on. Possibly, and into the pits now comes Paula and Martinez. And Gleeson, sorry, I've just seen that he has been registered having a 1.6 second pit stop. I don't think that's entirely accurate. But yes, Paula, Martinez and Nielsen all in the pits. And Reed now is just 15 seconds behind Gronkowski on the road, which shows that absolutely he does have the net lead. And no matter when Gronkowski pits, he will have to pass Reed on the track once again. And here is Martinez, who comes out behind Eduardo Ari, who of course was the driver he was racing before, so no surprise there.
Yeah, and in all of this, Timothy Vaughan has been one of the big gainers with his early pit stop. He's now up into 6th place with 3 yet to stop. So Timothy Vaughan is flying, and he might have just gone and decided today, from starting 19th on the grid, he might have a top 5 available in his back pocket.
Yeah, but again, he pitted very early, so in terms of strategy, he has something to prove still. But yeah, plenty of time still to go. We're not even halfway through the race yet, so that's why we're throwing around numbers when it comes to strategy. These drivers like to surprise us and surprise their opposition, of course. And as we're looking now at a fight in the lower part of the top 15, there is Florian Kammeier.
Florian's not had much luck this season. 2 races, 2 runs that haven't gone well. In comes Jordan Gronkowski. Out will come Jordan Gronkowski onto a set of the soft tyres to give chase. How much time has he given back to Jacob Reed? He's given him 10 seconds to play with. So this is a firm 2 versus 3. So half a pit stop effectively is what Jacob Reed has made with his big undercut strategy. That's going to be what the game is, 2v3. Cesare Manzato and Brad Newman come in. Brad was the head of that train. It was a 7-car battle for 10th place, and now Jason Green takes the mantle. Cedric Beale will have to give that one up.
Indeed, Green on the move. He has been part of this championship for quite a long time, one of the most prolific racers here, and always fights for every point that he can in the midfield. Not often seen up at the front of the order, but he's consistent, and that's what you need in this championship, depending on what happens up in front of you. Plenty of moves going on just outside of the top 15 as well. I think my timing screen is just updating itself, so it's not entirely accurate right now. But yes, if you look at the tyres as well, you can see that Walter Lux is still on those medium tyres, and unless I'm very much mistaken, those are still the medium tyres that he started this, yes, there you go, started this race on. So we were talking about Gronkowski staying out for absolutely ages. Walter Lux, I think, was following his lead and going, well, I can go one better.
Yeah, and he'll dive off then into the pits and make his strategy known. Great scrap a little bit further back. They've both got past Vaughan, has Radice and Marquez, two drivers who definitely have a claim to wanting what they need in this one, but there's no DRS for Marquez. Here comes Eduardo Radice down the inside on lap 24, and another one gets chalked up for the pole sitter. That will move him up into P6 with Cat still to stop. He's looking at P5 right now.
Yeah, he's on a comeback here, is Eduardo Radice. Anthony Cat, as you say, yet to stop, going for that one-stop strategy almost definitely at this point in time. Great camera shot there. The car's flying through the Dunlop curve with the Suzuka Ferris wheel. I don't know if it's called the Suzuka Eye or something like that in the background, but yes, very, very fancy shot there. And then, of course, down into the hairpin, the Nissan brake hairpin. As I joked before the start of this broadcast, it kind of sounds like the missing brake hairpin, which is what you usually do at that corner. Just seen that Connor Pooler has passed Anthony Cat as well. So Pooler, who has stopped, passing Cat, who hasn't.
Yep, so Anthony Cat here is going to be well over halfway, maybe to about lap 30, switch onto the mediums and go through, or it might be a very, very long hold on a hard, soft strategy. It just depends on how Anthony Cat's tyres keep him in this one. It's traditional to see Anthony Cat with the hard compound tyres on. It's something that has made his own, and it's what got him so far last season to a 4th place run in the SimSpeed Championship, and it's that consistency that's needed. Radice, fastest lap of the race there, with a 1:30.6, aided with the pass on Jorge Marquez. Now he's got his sights on Edward Apariari. He took 1.1 seconds out of him last time by.
A lot of the top drivers are squabbling over that fastest lap as we go through the race. That's only a 1/10 of a second faster than Reed's best lap. And of course, you do get an extra point for that if you have the fastest lap when the race ends. I'm sure that the fastest lap will probably fall again as the race goes on, whether to someone else or to Radice himself. Might of course change hands several times, as it has done so far. But yes, Radice absolutely flying at this point in time. His progress will be somewhat halted. Now he's caught up to the back of Edward Opari-Ari's car. But even Opari-Ari not going that slowly, only about a second slower, which of course sounds like a lot, but he has been... but of course the others have been running just so fast that it takes everything out of context.
It does, and Anthony Cat here has been doing well, but Edward Apariari here took out a full 2.7 seconds on that last lap, and he might have a look here into the Hitachi Astemo chicane. Not going to find it here, but the group now starts to congeal once more. Apariari now has Radice and Marquez there, who both want to get through. They all have the DRS flaps open, but look at this. Anthony Cat has nothing to fight back with the higher downforce package. One will go through, but the others cannot. It's covered off there for Radice and for Marquez, and Apariari now has the opportunity to run away. At what point does someone like Anthony Cat bite the bullet and change the tyre? When does his window open, Caitlin?
Well, it's quite interesting to see how much he's defending still, despite being about 4 seconds off the leading pace. Because it shows, and I tell you what, his last lap of the race was actually his personal best, despite being 3 seconds this time slower than the likes of Gronkowski. And up towards the hairpin he goes. Look, he's defending the inside again. He does not want Marquez to get up the inside. And that's really interesting, because a lot of people would expect they'd be on different strategies. They wouldn't really be racing each other that much. As up the inside goes Marquez and through into 6th on the road. But of course, with Cat's alternate strategy, you never know who he's going to end up racing with towards the end of this Grand Prix. So as a result, he's just trying to hold up everyone that he can for his own personal gain.
Vaughan's in the same boat here because that's Volta Lux who's wanting to get through. Those soft tyres have run a long time on Timothy Vaughan's yellow machine, a yellow submarine, some would say, as it's been going around. Hello to all the Villarreal fans in the world. But at the moment, Vaughan does enough, but you got to remember, this is where you want to deploy all your battery into overtake mode for the energy recovery system. This is where the DRS flat gets blown wide open. This is where Volta Lux will now illuminate up another position and find himself into P8, exactly where he started, but it's also where he runs wide and almost lets Timothy Vaughan back in.
Almost, but he doesn't. He manages to gather it back up again, so good driving there. Just been sent a note by the race director, Jay Kennedy, or the broadcast director, who says that Gronkowski is running almost a second a lap faster than Reed, and indeed he is. Although, of course, he needs to be, because he came out so far behind Jacob Reed with Reed's superior stint. Now there you saw the lap times on the bottom right. You can see that, yeah, so it's about 0.8 of a second on average over the last 2 laps. I think the one before is slightly misleading, judging by Gronkowski still trying to get his tyres up to temperature. But yeah, this is what you tend to see at this point in the race, and it'll be later on when Gronkowski really starts to get back into contention again and starts to challenge Reed. We could even see a late race showdown, as we've seen at some of the other races so far.
5 laps difference then in terms of tyres between Reed and Gronkowski here, and another half a second gets chopped off then here on lap 27 of the race. The question now I've got to ask to you, Caitlin, is does Jacob Reed actually have the ability to jump in early again and maybe convert to a 2 but go on to a medium tyre to get himself to the end?
Yeah, he obviously has the opportunity, as Anthony Catt now comes into the pits to get rid of those extremely old, hard tyres. Reed, of course, has that opportunity, especially since he's leading the race by 8.5 seconds, so that gives him plenty of time to experiment. But of course, you don't want to be experimenting when it could potentially cost you the win. He knows that the soft tyres are extremely damn quick, so now, of course, it's about summing up how quick they are and whether, as Cat's gone on to some soft tyres here. That's not what I expected. I was expecting mediums. So maybe he's like, well, I can run tyres for an extremely long time, so just watch this. Or maybe he's going for a 2-stop strategy. But anyway.
I reckon it's an aggressive 2. He'll go 13 and 13 on his softs to try and get himself home. Here is Jorge Martinez up the hill then as they now head over. You don't notice here the very important flick left 130R that you've gone over the bridge. Of course, you do have that all-important baseball field on the inside of 130R. That's what all the fencing's up there for. It's to cover any baseball that jumps up onto the circuit and any tyres that fly, of course, off of the car. The catch fencing is all there. Here's the DRS flat open. Martinez, who started his day in 9th. Apariari, who started in 10th. And both of them now are up 4 places. Apariari was up 5. He's now down to up 4 at this moment. Your biggest gains in the field, Timothy Vaughan, plus 11.
Tell you what, though, I've been very impressed by Eduardo Apariari. The number you see on the left, despite, or as well as being their race number, is also their seed. So how much iRating they have within the iRacing system. And Apariari, you can see, is actually only 21st seeded in this race. So for him to be running 6th, it shows that the seed is not always representative of how good you're actually going to be in these cars. Of course, another example of that would be Adam Gleeson retiring from this race so far. Just because you end up qualifying well, and Gleeson did qualify well, it doesn't mean you're entirely out of the woods when it comes to things like potential accidents or netcode or disconnections, and as a result we do end up with jumbled up fields. No jumble though with Jacob Reed. He is the first seeded, he is number 1 on the road, and in a lot of people's minds I'm sure he is the best driver here today, but still plenty of time to go.
That's a mega lap by Jordan Gronkowski there. That is a 130.8 that he has been able to put down on the board. He takes 1.2 out of Jacob Reed, who has not dropped his pace over the last 3 laps. You look at them, 131.9s to 132.1s. It's very consistent, but Gronk's just getting quicker and quicker and quicker. There is going to be one bit in the middle for Gronk to try and navigate through. That'll be the lap traffic of car 3. That's Brad Newman that he's going to have to get by, who's getting most of his iRacing through the Australian touring car scene, which is where he spends most of his plied trade. So now you get a real sense here of what Gronk is available to do and that real world heritage that he's got. He has been so good. He's an FF1600 champion. He's won some of the biggest trophies that Scotland's got to offer. Brilliant in the racing scene in the United Kingdom, and he is taking it to the sim, and he is saying, I am on top of the world on absolute red hot form, and as all things are painted red, in Warhammer, red things go fast.
Yep, I think there's a lapped car coming up here as well. And you say that Reed hasn't really been dropping off the pace, but his last time around was not particularly great, only 132.0, so we'll see what he does this time around. It's a 132.1. Now Gronkowski again is going to gain, well, not quite a second. He gains 0.8 of a second over him this time around. So Reed does appear to be dropping off the pace here. I wonder if there's...
Is he trying to extend that tyre life? Because think about it here.
I mean,
all he's got to do is match what Jordan Gronkowski's doing. He went 5 laps earlier to get the track position. Of course, he's got to pay that back now. But the key here is if he can get himself into a window. Remember, he pitted lap 17. He's 14 lap. This is his 14th lap now on his set of soft tyres. If he can extend this out by 5 more laps, he's in the window for a 2-stop on softs.
I was going to say, it's a possibility, but remember how quickly he was going when he exited the pits. How wide he had to run through some of those corners to overtake the back markers, and how hard he was pushing just in general. I do hope that he hasn't used up too much of his tyre, because that would force him to go for a medium tyre next. And realistically, that would put Gronkowski in the driving seat. So keep an eye on that one. He's still losing time. As here we look, is this Anthony Catt now?
It is. He's got his eyes set on Adam Webb, who, remember, did have that smack into the barrier, so we don't know how skewed the steering is on his Mercedes W13E performance. So this could be an all-important move for Catt. This is one to jump him up to 14th. He's not going to find it at the Nissan brake hairpin, or actually he might on the exit. You can get great drive off that exit. It is slightly banked to help drivers get that rush off of the exit on the outside, and as such through 200 right, Catt's not got to run here towards Spoon.
So here we go through the Spoon curve. There's Adam Webb. Even before his spin, I was going to say this earlier, but even before his spin, I saw him take a strange line out of that corner one lap that indicated he'd made a mistake. So the Degner curves not being particularly polite to Adam Webb, or vice versa. Timothy Vaughan into the pits this time around. So I noticed that he pitted very early for his first stint. His second stint has been much, much longer. And
missed box.
Missed his box, did he?
Yeah, he did, and he almost had it fully in the pit lane. The pit crew had to really adjust down the inside. Beautifully late there from Anthony Catt as he flies through. Another set of the softs for Timothy Vaughan. Now, this is going to be the key here as well late on, is that you've got less fuel in the car. Less fuel means less weight, means you can drive faster, means less weight that's actually going through the tyres, meaning you can keep the tyres in range for longer.
Yep, you always see drivers running the tyres longer as the race goes on. The difficulty, of course, is if concentration or a lapse of concentration starts to set in due to the length of the race, and you start to make mistakes, because that can wear the tyres out. As you see, oh dear, there was Vaughan going rather skew-if into his pit lane, having to reverse into the box. The cars aren't exactly designed to do that, and of course, in the real world of motorsports, drivers have actually been disqualified for doing that in the past. I think Nigel Mansell, I think it was Portugal 1989, or 1990 anyway. But yes, here of course you can't actually injure crew members, so get it into the pit box and you're fine. The difficulty, of course, is that would have cost him a second or so.
It is one of the most deceptive front straights out there in motorsport. Everyone thinks it's pancake flat. It's actually downhill towards turn 1, and then you climb back up the hill once again as you go through the S's. Through the Gyaku bank goes Edward Apariari, and we're looking at Volta Lux at the moment, who's trying to take that 6th place away from car number 21 in the beautiful Cyan machine, heading through the second of the Decna curves and up to the Nissan brake hairpin. 110 right here is this small flick, which makes this braking zone so difficult because you've got to do the toughest skill in open wheel racing, the turn and brake at the same time, otherwise known as the trail brake.
Yeah, well, these cars here, they get on the brakes so quickly. The brakes are they're almost savage in their performance. That you tend to be through the kink by the time you actually start braking. The difficulty, of course, is that the hairpin itself has a slightly curved entrance, and as a result, you tend to be slightly off the line as you approach it. And that's why I call it the missing brake hairpin, because you can often get it all wrong going up into there, and then, of course, the exit on top of that is even more difficult, because you're on a bit of an incline, so the car wants to get away from you. So as you put the power down in first or second gear, the car just kicks out, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But anyway, here we are with Walter Lux. Ooh, well, he got close. He got very close to the back of Eduardo Ari, but the latter had the line.
Paul O'Regan jumps in from 8th place then to make his pit stop, and look at that gap for the race lead. It's now down at 2.3 seconds, and that battle between Edward Apariari and Volta Lux is very crucial right now here, Caitlin, because that is exactly where Jacob Reed's going to come out if he pits on this lap.
Now, the fact that Gronkowski is catching Reed so fast actually puts a lot of pressure on Reed, because he won't want to be passed by Gronkowski. That could cost him a lot of time. And as a result, there's always the possibility of coming into the pits. The trouble with that, of course, is that would very much confine him to either a tentative, a cautious stint on softs, or a shorter stint on mediums, which is not exactly ideal. So if I was Reed, I'd stay out here at least until Gronkowski gets past you, or until maybe 15 or so laps to go. You see 19 laps to go as it stands. But yeah, this really is a difficult situation for Reed, who won't want to be passed, but if he does, it's not all over.
It's not, and this is the key that he's got. He can always dive into the pit, and I wonder if now, or maybe a couple laps from now, might be the key, as in comes Edward Apariari then to make his final stop of the day. We are in that window. This has been a mega stint here by Jacob Reed. Do not understate how important this run is. He had 5 laps. Fresher softs to go on to, had a 10-second gap build-up after dropping almost a second off the pace, so he gained 11 seconds, and he's given that all back over the course of this stint, and many drivers get frustrated at this stage in the race, but he is keeping Gronkowski in check, and if anything, he is making his 2-stop work, and he knows it's more even keel when it comes to the final stint. It will be one-on-one on nearly even footing.
Apariari and Green came in. Very long stop for Apariari. That must have been a damage would you say?
14
and a
seconds.
Penalty apparently for Jason Green. Do you see that penalty? Well, what's that for?
Yeah, well, a penalty there, a black flag, that could mean a lot of things. That could mean going over the 17-point incident limit here around this series, which of course means a drive-through penalty if you get to that point. 25 incidents is disqualification. So yeah. Jason Green with issues out there, so to Edward Apariari, but that is your race leader, Jacob Reed, into the pits. Gronkowski's going to stay out another lap, and he now knows, does Gronk, he can't stay out forever. Surely he's got to cover it this time. Reed out and away. He'll be out in 4th place here, and he'll have fresh air to work with.
Reed's advantage is that we've seen so far, he gets the tyres up to temperature so quickly. He's quick, almost as quick as he has been at any other point in the race as he exits the pits. And I'm not entirely sure how he does that, but there he goes. Now here we look at, well, we've got split screen between Gronkowski and Reed, the two most important drivers in terms of the race for the victory in this Grand Prix. as Haugland also pits. So does Kent Nielsen, and Apari
again.
is back in the pit. So has he got a penalty as well?
Well, it would have been a penalty the first time he had to serve, and now he's going to get his tyres changed. So that's going to be what he's looking at right now in terms of his race. What does he do from there? He will make his tyre change and go. Gronkowski, does he decide to cover off this move by Jacob Reed? This is the critical juncture in this race. No, he stays out, so he wants that benefit of the tyres on the overcut so he can charge back through the field. Meanwhile, Jacob Reed will continue to gain and gain and gain in terms of his time at the moment. That gap is 20 seconds right now. He's lost a second since Jacob Reed's come out the pits.
The lap times are so important here. Gronkowski's last lap was a 1:32.1. We'll see what Reed's is. Well, actually, we won't see what Reed's is because it was an out lap. But yes, indeed, I think that Gronkowski might end up regretting staying out that one extra lap. But I am talking from an outsider's perspective. We'll have to wait and see. We're on board now with Jacob Reed, one of the fastest drivers that I've had the privilege of commentating on the iRacing platform. And I've said this before, but he's the only driver in this race who I've actually raced against before. No surprise that he was faster than me, but there you go. Walter Lux and Ray Lombardi also in the pits as we speak. And now we wait for Jordan Gronkowski.
Well, the key here is that Connor Poole has got out of the way. That's one less car. It'll only be Eduardo Radice that Jacob Reed will have to try and navigate away by. But we've seen him on board through the opening two sectors of this lap. He flowed so effortlessly through what is a Sakura garden of an opening sector, a stop-start samurai's blade of a middle sector, and then you've got everything you can want and then some out of this final section. The Vista View heading on through 130R. In comes Gronk. He's going to give him 2 laps advantage now to try and make that work. And what's the gap going to be as Radice peels off into the pits? Reed is now going to take the race lead. He crucially doesn't get the DRS, but Jordan Gronkowski is probably going to be about 5 seconds back with it all to chase Reed. Fastest lap bonus point.
That's so important. Now, if it's okay, could we see how long Reed's second stint was? I'm interested because Jordan Gronkowski gained, oh, there we go. So it was 18 laps was Jacob Reed's second stint, whereas Gronkowski's there was 15 laps. So in about the space of 14 laps, Gronkowski was able to gain about, 8 or 9 seconds on Reed. If he does that again, he will be with Jacob Reed at the end of this race. So Reed's got to fly. I mean, he is flying. He's got the fastest lap of the race, and he's the first driver to set a lap under 1:30, so very, very quick indeed. But of course, we've seen how quick Gronkowski is on fresh softs as well. So if he does what he did in that first stint, he will be right up with Jacob Reed at the end of this Grand Prix. It is not over yet.
Remember, Jacob Reed is a front-heavy driver. He's very good on the opening few laps. There's Jorge Martinez. That is Eduardo Radice, who has just come out of the pits in front of him. That's important because Martinez has an extra lap on the tyres. He is in range, but remember, Radice will be using the best of that Pirelli rubber that he's got available to him, trying to really maximize as much as he can at this moment. Up the hill they charge, under the Dunlop Bridge and the West pits that are there on the right-hand side. But now through 130R, it looks like there is just enough of a gap for Eduardo Radice to say he's got 4th and he's got 3 seconds to chase Connor Poole if he wants to get back on the podium after facing backwards at the end of the opening lap.
Yeah, that would be very impressive indeed. He'll still be kicking himself. I know how drivers are, but it would be impressive to return to the podium after that. Martinez, of course, don't count him out yet. Walter Lux has just got past Anthony Catt. That's a fight we've seen taking place over many, many laps. And this time Lux is successful and through into 6th place. And the gap between Reed and Gronkowski that last lap actually came out relatively significantly as well, with Reed about, well, that was an out lap for Gronkowski, so of course it did. My apologies.
Well, no, you still got to look at it here. He's up 3/10 at the moment on this lap alone. Jacob Reed is flying right now, and he is using everything he's got available to him to maintain that gap. He may have just pulled a blinder out in strategy, knowing that he needed to use all of the tyres and all of the battery to gain that momentum and then hold it between now and the end of this race. It's a case where Jordan Gronkowski's been a little bit slow. He's been a little bit sluggish today to react to what Jacob Reed's been doing. And that is why the iRacing Pro Stripe driver has got that ability to say he's 7.5 seconds to the good, just a tenth the difference on that last lap there, or in fact, even less, 700ths the difference on that last lap. Gronkowski is even keel with Jacob Reed. Difference is 7.5 seconds. It's going to need a mistake out of someone who doesn't do mistakes. Radice with the fastest lap of the race.
Wow, 129.7 there, even quicker than Jacob Reed's been able to go in the past. Of course, the difficult thing for Gronkowski now is that he'll be looking at that gap and getting frustrated. Why is it not coming down like it was before? But of course, that's because before Reed was later in his stint. So now we've got to wait until towards the end of the stint to see what Reed does there. There's not quite so much of a difference between the age of their tyres this time, because Reed's last stint was, of course, longer than Gronkowski's was. But there's still an opportunity towards the end of the race. If Reed's tyres start to go off slightly more than they did before, or around the same, then Gronkowski, if he's managed to maintain his own tyre life, should still have an opportunity.
Jacob Reed, of course, this race last season was one of the latter races overall. He did take the victory here at Suzuka. He's about, at this stage, with 7.5 seconds of buffer to do it again here at Suzuka. He's got an affinity with this place, and he is proving it. This is the true driver's circuit, and he is doing so well. And there, he only loses a few thousandths, a few hundreds and thousands, but there's not enough topping on the cake, so to speak here, Caitlin, to bring this back into play. If you look further back, though, this is Cedric Beale, and this is Anthony Cat, who has just made his final pit stop of the day. He's rushing to try and get back into the top 10, which is being guarded by the South African George van Rensburg. Here comes the look then to the Hitachi curve out there, the chicane. The Astamo chicane is not going to be there for Cat. He runs wide, and that's going to be covered, surely this time, by Cedric Beale on the straight.
Yes, but I'm not sure Van Rensburg's going to be able to go to the end on this set of tyres, or at least not at a considerable pace. So this could end up being... Oh, look at that little look into turn one. But yeah, this could end up being the fight for the final points paying position. I've just seen Jay Kennedy said in the chat that Jacob Reed's outlap was 2.5 seconds quicker than Gronkowski's. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where he just gets the tyres up to temperature so quickly. I'm still not entirely sure how he does it so much better than everyone else. But yeah, it's absolutely true. He definitely did gain time, and quite a chunk of time as well on that outlap, which has given himself another head start to Jordan Gronkowski. So if he wins this race, then that will be a considerable part of what allowed him to do so. And there's a move now from Cat on Beale.
Yep, and that's going to be around the outside of 200 right to get it sorted. This is going to be magical, and he does get it done. That is as Maho Shoujo as it gets. Brilliantly made, and Anthony Cat now finds himself in P11 and look behind. That's not even Hogland. Now he's going to look to try and take advantage on the run to 130R.
Yeah, alongside, oh, this is tight. 130R, a very fast corner, completely flat out under most conditions. And you really dread going side by side with someone through there, but sometimes you have to if you have so much of a run on them down the previous straight. Cedric Beale now into the pits, so not only is Van Rensburg going to be touch and go to the end, but Cedric Beale, unfortunately for himself, could not make it, as once again Jacob Reed is going well. His last lap time only half a second slower than Gronkowski's. This time around it'll be about the same, but that does of course mean that Gronkowski is starting to catch.
Yeah, but that is enough right now. Half a second a lap's not going to get you home and dry, Gronk. if you want to try and chase this one through. And there is Ray Lombardi staying out of the way on the left-hand side, wanting to get well out of anything that goes along. This time by, Gronk does a 30.1. That gap is now down, and at 7/10 on this lap, that is enough. Jordan Gronkowski is now starting to find that form, and he is so good on the long run pace. This is what we're talking about. Jacob Reed is so good early on, but now he's got 11 laps to hold, and Jordan Gronkowski is going to turn the crank.
I love how stereotypically Reed versus Gronkowski this race is. Reed quick at the beginning, Gronkowski quick at the end, the stints reflecting this as well. This is very much what I expected to see today in the race between Reed versus Gronkowski. What I didn't expect is that it would be this close. Of course, so far this season, Reed and Gronkowski have been the front runners in this series, but we haven't really seen a fight quite like this one between the pair of them. I think someone was having a spin there. Yeah, that looked like was that Florian Kamaya spinning, who's a lap down, and that may have cost Reed probably only like 0.3 of a second, but it's something.
It's enough. That's the one thing you don't want, and it's so comfy for Gronkowski to deal with then as he goes by. And remember, Gronkowski in a straight line can gain 3, 4, 5, 6/10 of a second on the straights. That's where he makes his margin up, and having to be compromised on that run is going to cost Jacob Reed a half a second on this lap. 1:30.4 by Gronk, 30.8 by Jacob Reed, 0.4 of a second gap now with 10 laps to go. It's got to be 6/10 a lap by Gronk if he wants to try and win this race. As that's going on, watch out for P3. Here comes Eduardo Radice looking to try and go from the back to third after the end of the opening lap. Not yet. Connor's still got enough to fight back with for the moment.
What a drive this has been for Radice so far. The fastest driver on track, don't forget, with the fastest lap. But of course, slightly balked now with Pooler ahead of him, so won't be going quite as quickly. I tell you what though, he had 0.8 of a second over Pooler on that last lap. So it is very much advantage Radice. Keep your cool, and you should end up getting through. I'm talking, of course, metaphorically to Eduardo Radice, or rhetorically, I guess would be a better word to use for this. Of course, there's a little too much of a gap for him to get involved in the lead scrap. He won't be expecting to do so. And if this is the only scrap that he's got to worry about right now, then he can afford to bide his time. Just don't make any mistakes, and he should go through to third.
Anthony Cat has just jumped up inside the top 10 as this battle continues. Oh, little take over the curb there. Correction from Eduardo Radice as he had to try and make sure the car was settled as it went up over. Lombardi on the left is going to play no factor, but watch out, Connor Pooler, because Eduardo Radice now might just try and line you up, use the Hitachi Astemo chicane as the pick for the pocket, and this is where you've got to be so switched on. Out to the final corner and heading along this front stretch all the way to the pit wall he goes. Is this going to be enough? Radice will take the road long travelled, and it's been a day of graft for him as he jumps onto the podium.
Around the outside, what a drive this has been for Eduardo Radice. It's almost a shame that he spun on the first lap, because otherwise, who knows what could have happened. He might well have been involved in this lead scrap. Or, who knows, he could have been way ahead and we wouldn't have had a race for the lead at all. But, you know, that's a complete hypothetical at this point in time, and we do have to celebrate Radice for making this recovery drive. It's just updated on my timing screen as well. As for the leaders, Gronkowski took, again, 4.5 of a second out of Reed. He might need a mistake from Reed, or at least more moments from back markers like the one we saw just now, because this wouldn't quite be enough. It will be close though. We are going to get a grandstand finish.
Well, the next two back markers are Cedric Beale and Cesare Manzato, who find themselves right now 16th and 17th. Manzato is the one driver struggling who will fall back into the clutches. That's about 10 seconds down the road, 8 seconds down the road. Jacob Reed, 31 flat on that lap, 30.5 by Gronkowski, another half a second. But half a second means he's 2 laps short, Caitlin. The 2 laps, of course, you have to talk about where he was quite simply put needing that advantage over Jacob Reed, who pitted 2 laps earlier. Those 2 laps
And of course, the 2 laps worth of pace, or over that Jacob Reed gained on the outlaps. So this really is playing out or setting itself up to be a race decided entirely on outlap pace. Of course, no race is settled entirely on anything. There is a combination of a lot of different factors, but you have to say that's what Reed has had that Gronkowski hasn't, as we see O'Regan fighting with Timothy Vaughan here, 7th versus 8th position.
Whoa,
and
that's heavy, it's Hogland. It's going to also take Adam Webb with him. A massive accident through the final turn.
Wow, it looked as if, well, that will happen very quickly. It looked as if Hogland was going around and Webb had nowhere to go whatsoever. You can see he's heavily damaged. I think he's got to park this one up and get it back to the pits that way, because you are not... Well, he's going to struggle to get it round to the pits. The axles are all out of alignment. Now, this is all kicked off by Hogland hitting the inside barrier and bouncing out, because that's what caused him to go, oh, it's straight. It's the attenuator. That's one of the worst accidents that you can have on a Grand Prix racing circuit. And it's a good job this isn't real life, because someone would have had the wind taken out of them there.
Yeah, that is a hefty accident, and it's one where Øyvind Haugland does exactly the same as what happened to Eduardo Radice on the opening lap. He just caught the corner funny, tried to get full power through, didn't have the grip, and the car spat through. 7/10 on that last lap. Jordan Gronkowski gets it down to 4.3 seconds, and Jacob Reed now must respond. There is just Degner's, and soon Gronkowski will see in the distance. He will see in the distance now the ever-growing speck of Jacob Reed. Here's another look. This is an onboard view of what happened to Øyvind Haugland here. This is the key. 3rd gear. Oh, it's right on the shift. It's on the upshift.
Strange one. That's the 2nd car we've seen completely lose the rear going down through that final turn. And that has, of course, taken Øyvind Haugland out of the race. Absolutely no question about that. As for Webb, he's still trying to get the car back around. But, oh, and there he is, actually. Oh, he's right in front of Reed here, actually. This could be important. Hopefully, doesn't hold him up. Watch this through the... Actually,
he'll dive in now.
There's a car between them, isn't there?
Oh, no, stay out. Well, Adam Webb here has the black and orange mechanical flag, which means he does have to come in within the 4 laps, or he's going to be disqualified here in this race. Cesare Manzato is going to jump on this, and this is the biggest nightmare that Jacob Reed could possibly have. He's going to catch him through the S's section here, and Adam Webb is going to have to stay well out of the way. He just about manages to do that with Jacob Reed. Jordan Gronkowski is going to be next on here, and he is really going to have to be switched on to the fact that Adam Webb is slow and is damaged out there, heading through the Nippo corner. This is where Jacob Reed's going to now start trying to run away. 3.7 seconds. Gronk clears the traffic, stays at 3.7 seconds. But the key here now, Jacob Reed's got traffic, and it's at the worst time he's held up.
Indeed, he's being very badly held up here. Now, who's the... Oh, that's Manzato on the exit of the corner. At least he's got past Webb pretty quickly. That was the one I was pretty concerned about. He gets past Manzato now. And once again, we'll have to see on lap times how much that has actually cost him. And of course, another question will be how much Gronkowski gets held up in the same vein. Gronkowski,
well, it depends.
Still... Go on.
It just depends on when he's caught. That's the key for Manzato. Where does Gronk catch him, and what benefit does he gain? Because he is so lightning on these straights. That gap down to 3.2. That gap will be under 3 seconds now, and he is absolutely motoring up towards half a second a lap from here on out. Might just be enough to get him in range. He's got to be within a second heading to the final lap to have a shot of victory here today. Jacob Reed will know that. Gronk knows this, and that gap on that lap, you look at it, it's 31.7 versus 31.1. It's another 0.6.
3 seconds now, 2.9 seconds is the gap between Jacob Reed and Jordan Gronkowski at the head of this field with 5 laps to go. Gronkowski will be on the back of him, and we know he has the advantage when it comes to wheel-to-wheel combat due to having that lesser rear wing. He does have Manzato, though, coming up just in front of him, so definitely keep your eye on that. Adam Webb has made it into the pits, by the way, and will be doing some damage repairs. Unfortunately, no chance of sim speed points for him today.
This is the circuit that in its 4th and 5th iterations of the Formula One series had the biggest saga in racing history. Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna. We've got our own here with Jacob Reed versus Jordan Gronkowski, and that gap at 2.6. This is perfect. Now, Gronk's going to get a tow up the hill from Cesare Manzato, and he might have to lunge and make the move at the Hitachi at Semo chicane. This is where he's going to get the advantage, and is he going to be held up? He is going to have to take a compromised line into the corner, but he crucially clears it and clears it well. Now that gap down under 2.4.
Fantastic. Across the line we go once again. We will, of course, keep an eye on the gap. Lap 49, you're keeping an eye on that little graphic on the bottom right. And it was about 7/10. There we go. 7/10 of a second was the advantage that Gronkowski had once again. Radice, of course, still has that fastest lap, and they're just over a second off that, or at least Gronkowski's just over a second off that. So no real danger of the fastest lap falling into either of these drivers' hands, but still very quick for the age of tyres that they're running. And through, so he's got past Manzato now, got past Cesare Manzato, and I don't think he lost too much time in the process.
No, we saw the move happen on screen. We saw that pass go through. And Jordan Gronkowski, all he's got to do is match Jacob Reed in the first 2 sectors. And then he can use the power that he's got available, the downforce that he doesn't have, the straight line speed to go and gain all that time back on the straight. He's got a racing car rather than a quali car, which is more what Jacob Reed has at this moment in time. 2.2 the gap, 2 seconds now the gap. Jacob Reed, the alarm bell sounds, and it is ringing in his ears.
Here we go then, towards the end of another lap. Remember, when Gronkowski gets within a second, and right now it seems to be a matter of when rather than if, when he gets within a second, he will have that DRS. So as he goes down the straight, he will have less drag than Jacob Reed. I know that sounds a little unfair, but of course it would be the same no matter which way round they were, with Reed, of course, having the same option available to him when he gets within a second of a car in front of him. But right now, of course, he'll be cursing the existence of DRS. He didn't need it to pull any of his overtakes earlier on. He just drove right around the outside of other cars. Gronkowski will be relying on it.
Does anyone remember 2005? Kimi Räikkönen versus Giancarlo Fisichella? It's this. It's all over again. And right now, Jordan Gronkowski is throwing the kitchen sink at Jacob Reed. And Reed is trying to duck, dip, dodge, and dive and everything else he can possibly think of at this moment. But it's that long straight which always becomes the factor, the one that Jacob Reed doesn't want to deal with. He'll know that he'll have, at this rate, one defense that he'll have to do on the front stretch, and it might just be coming onto the final lap, that gap down to 1.4 seconds. Marker's pretty early here for DRS, and I think he's not going to get there in time. It's 1.1 for Gronkowski. He will not have the DRS as he heads onto this straight for 2 to go.
You were right to bring up 2005. I mentioned it earlier with the Montoya-Radice crash at the start. But of course, the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix was determined on the very last lap of the race, with Räikkönen going around the outside of Fisichella. Could we see a similar story unfolding here today with Reed and Gronkowski? It's entirely possible. Gronkowski will have the DRS going down that straight. It's almost undeniable at this point that he will be within 1 second of Jacob Reed up ahead of him. If he's within about 7/10, he has a realistic chance of actually getting through on that straight as well. You see the sparks fly as he runs over the curb in the Degners. That's how much he's pushing at this point in time. And the car still absolutely planted for Jordan Gronkowski. He's driving so well.
Caitlin, he's had to close down 8 seconds on this final stint. He's been doing so magnificently.
Yeah, absolutely. doesn't really matter who you're racing against. If you're gaining 8 seconds, then you're obviously doing a good job. But to gain 8 seconds on Jacob Reed in the same car, on the same tyre compound, on a circuit as difficult as Suzuka, that just shows how well he's been going and just how competitive Jordan Gronkowski is.
Well, this is going to be key because he will now get the DRS light. Ray Lombardi, lap traffic spins in front. This could be huge. This is coming to the last lap. And look at the absolute limit of traction from Jacob Reed, throwing everything he can at it. Is there enough as they start the final lap for this one move for Gronk to find through? Not on the opening 2 corners. That might be his biggest salvo yet. But follow through now, the S's section, through the all-important Assura S. Now comes up the Gyaku Bank, the reverse camber corner, and then Nippo corner awaits. This is where Jacob Reed has been good, but then the Degners follow, and it's all Jordan Gronkowski from here on a legendary circuit, on a legendary night. Here in Mie Prefecture, it is these two who are going to slug it out all season, the reigning champion and the championship leader. Through now they go, out to the Nissan brake hairpin and over towards Spoon. And Gronkowski at 9/10 needs now a small quantum of solace. This is going to be all about what he has heading to the Hitachi Atsumo chicane and out to Spoon. That gap will close and the slipstream is going to become tantamount to this race. 0.7 of a second, and Gronk will close, to 130R. Here comes the move. Outside he looks, clears him. There goes Reed, running outside. He's too deep. Gronk is gonna take it. Gronk has survived it. Gronk has got his 3 feet. Oh, how sweet it is.
Jordan Gronkowski on the final lap of the race, the final sector, mind you, wins the Grand Prix. Jacob Reed will be absolutely gutted. I mean, he's driven such an amazing race. The fact that he was able to drive around the outside of all of those slower cars after his pit stops and not lose out too much time to drop behind Gronkowski was incredible. But he's made a mistake. He went too defensive. He tried to switch back on Jordan Gronkowski into the triangle, got it all wrong, missed his braking, and Jordan Gronkowski is a worthy winner. We're going to see a replay now on board with Jacob Reed. Looking backwards, you'll see Gronkowski getting bigger and bigger, closer and closer. Now Reed actually brakes or lifts off earlier than he would otherwise do because he wanted to go to the other side of Gronkowski. He wanted to keep his car on the inside line for the second part of the chicane to fight him that way, but he got it wrong. And Jordan Gronkowski has won the Grand Prix.
It was too cute in the end from Jacob Reed. He tried to out-clever Jordan Gronkowski, and in the end, he got his feet in a muddle. And as such, it is victory for the Scot, a 3rd straight here in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, a winning margin of 3 seconds in the end over Jacob Reed, with Eduardo Radice, who spun on the opening lap, the pole sitter, battling valiantly back to get a podium, a mega podium when you think about it. Connor Pooler will take 4th ahead of Jorge Martinez, who will round out the top 5 with Volta Lux, with Timothy Vaughan and Paul O'Regan there in 8th position. Again, of course, a 12 for Timothy Vaughan in this one. A gain of 11 for Kent Nielsen, who ends up in 9th place. And Anthony Katz's alternative strategy will net him 1 championship point as he finishes off in 10th. Just outside that top 10 is Edward Apari RE, who really gave a good account of himself today, with George Van Rensburg in 12th. Jason Green would end up 13th ahead of Cedric Beale, the last finisher on the leading lap. The 3 drivers a lap down with Cesare Manzato, Florian Kammeyer and Brad Newman. 4 laps down was Ray Lombardi. Everyone else a retiree. Adam Webb and Oyvind Horgland caught together in the same accident in the final corner, with Adam Gleason parking the car with damage. And in the early stages, Darren Parker with a hammer blow for his hopes, knowing just how good these 2 drivers at the front of the field are, who are going to go toe for toe. And they will do so, Caitlin, in 2 weeks' time when we head to Mugello for the 5th round of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. First time the iRacing Grand Prix Tour has found itself in Tuscany, and these beautiful, beautiful mountains. This is a circuit that is so revered.
Absolutely. Look at that scenery there. Mugello is always a good place to go. It's definitely on my bucket list for circuits to visit in reality. You can actually see the track map on that banner as well. The extremely long straight heading between the final corner and the first corner. That's a real overtaking opportunity. There aren't too many overtaking opportunities. It's very fast, very sweeping. There's lots of chicanes. It's designed primarily for bike racing. But in terms of the spectacle, you can't really get much better than Grand Prix cars at Mugello.
You absolutely can't. You can catch it with us here at SimSpeed TV for all of the most amazing racing action that you can possibly get your hands on. What an incredible showcase here today, from coverage brought to you, of course, with Jay Kennedy, with Caitlin Penny, and of course myself, Jake Sperry. This is a season that means so much. It is going to be hard fought, and this was the prime example of it. As we say sayonara from Japan, it is a massive hello over to Firenze, because someone had to be an assassin today, and the creed was written in the stars. It's Jordan Gronkowski on the final lap, 3 in a row. Can he be stopped at Mugello?